Hey, good Tuesday morning, and thanks for checking out your latest long-range forecast update. Michael Clark here with BAM Weather and the Weather Portal. Hope you all had a fantastic Memorial Day weekend, a nice little 3-day stretch there of some downtime. The weather models certainly did not do that. In fact, they decided to pretty much do a 180 here from Friday's thoughts to Tuesday morning's thoughts. And, we've done some looking and, if you remember when we first started talking about summer, even back in late April, early May forecasts, even I was stating in our videos that I thought that once June rolled around, it could dry up very quickly and get very warm, and then the models, we caught on to what they were doing, so we went cooler and wetter. Now they've decided to revert back. And so original thoughts seem to be having more merit now than what updated thoughts on Friday had. So full transparency, that just happens sometimes. And we could sit here and talk about it all day long, but instead we're just going to have to deal with it, adapt and change and move on. So it's certainly looking like there could be a shutoff and precipitation here over the course of the next couple of weeks. We're gonna dive into this. First maps I want to show you here are the old 10 to 15 day charts from the European. Top left and right and top right. You can see how wet the forecast was in the old 10 to 15. Plenty of 100% or more in terms of the percentages from normal precip. Rolled into the 1 to 5, you can see it's a drastically different forecast. Very, very different look. The warmth over the top starting to expand once you rolled the 10 to 15 into the new 1 to 5. When you look at the GFS, the American Weather Model, and you just look at this forecast in the old 10 to 16 as we roll it forward into the new day 3 to 9. You can see exactly what it's doing as well. Rolling forward much, much drier. Okay, even more so really if you look at some different charts with different color scales, even more so the GEFS did than the European. So our forecast today, we have an updated June outlook. And it is not looking as good as it did on Friday. I'm just going to tell you that right now, or as it is when I did my video on Thursday. Very concerning trends are developing. There's some reasoning behind those trends that I want to share with you. Regardless, we have an incredibly warm forecast going forward. Multiple days of mid to upper 90s for the northern tier of the U.S. and even triple-digit heat possible within the next 7 days across the northern plains. So it is going to get very, very hot and get very dry very quickly. All right, this is going to be quick. So we're going to have to kind of, kind of work our way through this, see how quickly this can happen. But I am concerned, and I'm going to go over that with you here going forward. It's going to remain wet into the deep south. No big changes there, at least in the short term. Next 90 hours. All right, let's just look at the next 3.5 days. I've taken the European on the left, GFS on the right, both very similar in rainfall forecasts here. This takes us out through Friday night, 8 o'clock. You can see no rainfall whatsoever in the northern plains in the central U.S. A storm system is going to skirt up in through the southeastern portions of Missouri, southern Illinois, Indiana, the interior, kind of the Ohio Valley, really 1 to 2 inches of rain being possible with this storm system here early this week. Both models really agree with that right now. How far north does it go? We question that a little bit. European a little bit further north than the GFS. Regardless, they both have a general area of rainfall that would stretch here across the Arklatex regions into the Ohio Valley here over the next 3 days. Okay, it's still very wet in Texas, as you can see. Very obvious forecast there. Let's take a look at the GEFS and how it trended forward here. Again, the old 12 to 16 into the new 6 to 10 day forecast. One thing that really sticks out to me is the development of the negative P&A, okay, and the development of some less blocking here towards the NAO region, the Hudson Bay. What's happening is this is really allowing this Great Lakes ridge to really amplify in this process and shut off the stream of moisture, shut off the subtropical jet stream. It's really kind of shunting it, if you will, and you're not really getting one, all right? It's suppressing it, it's keeping it well south, and what little moisture there is, if you will, in the U.S. here in this forecast, it's coming from pretty much the Gulf of Mexico and not really from a true subtropical jet stream. and I'm going to talk about that here in just a second. Here's a look at the 10-day GFS rainfall forecast, the latest run. Okay, not sure how I feel about that. Not really buying into that right now. Regardless, this area here, overall, when you compare this to normal, it's actually below normal. You have to understand we're in June. We're averaging 4 to 5 inches of rain in the month. That means everybody's supposed to be getting an inch of rain per week, all right, on average. Maybe you're supposed to be getting 1.2 or 0.8. You get what I'm saying here. That's how much you're supposed to get every 7 days. All right, the GFS outside of this, the next 10 days that comes through early, you know, it's going to be tough to get that. When you look at the 10-day departures from normal, you can see everybody here that is below normal. And I do believe that western North Dakota will be. I don't know if I really agree with this forecast here, to be quite honest with you. I think this entire area, the next 10 days, is looking at a below normal rainfall forecast for the most part. You're going to be below normal on your rain. Okay? When you look at this out to the next 16 days, just looking at the GFS operational, okay, it's a totally different look from what it was Thursday and Friday of last week. It's totally different. You're wet down here. You've got some moisture return down here underneath this ridge, but up and over into the U.S., there's just not much going on in terms of precipitation. All right, look at the European control just out through 16 days. Again, much below normal rainfall forecast. All right, so with that in mind, we also want to look at these temperatures. I think this is very important and may not be getting enough attention. Highs Thursday are going to start flirting with 90 degrees in the Dakotas. Then you start getting into Friday, you're getting into mid-upper 90s and even triple-digit heat being forecasted here across Minnesota and the Dakotas. All right, getting into Saturday's forecast, more of the same, probably the hottest day coming up. All right, this is day 5 forecast from the ECMWF, European model. Just very, very hot, all right, for this time of year. In fact, if I hear it gets hot in summer, crap, because that, quite frankly, is what it is. It's crap. We know it gets hot in the summer, but this is the departure from average for the Saturday forecast. That's 20 to 30 degrees above the average for that high temperature at that time. It's incredibly warmer than average. Okay, 100-degree heat, and then you have this significant dipole going on where you're significantly colder down in Texas, 10 to 15 degrees below the average. But guys, this is not the, it gets hot in the summer. This is not that, okay? This is a significant departure, okay? So please understand that. Keep that in mind. I'm not trying to hype this up. I'm just telling you what it is, right? This is the data, okay? Sunday afternoon high temperatures, again, mid-upper 80s, 90s for folks. There's a lot of night. Wherever you see the grays, these are 90s on Sunday, all right? Here's Monday's highs. Getting into Tuesday of next week. All right, so this is a very warm forecast, European indicating 90s possible even in the Ohio Valley next week. We've got to watch this, okay? Because you start getting that warm this early in June, in the precipitation, you know, it hasn't been the greatest. I'm going to show you something here. I meant to have this map pulled up, and just you can navigate with me. Let's look at the last 30 days and just the percent of normal in the precipitation department. It's not an exceptionally wet pattern by any means. Let's pull up the Corn Belt here and open it in a new tab. It's not an exceptionally dry pattern by any means either, so don't get me wrong here. But understand that when you start talking about temperatures in the 90s very quickly, when you're below normal precipitation, when you're 50 to 25% of the normal here, obviously you know the story in Michigan, incredibly dry in Michigan, northern Illinois. But then up in here, you know, it's not going to take long to really zap some of these dry areas in the Corn Belt. Now, there's areas that are doing great, that have ample amounts of moisture, okay? And so this is an odd situation or odd setup. It's the good and the bad right now, I guess, if you will, relatively compared to normal. But it's going to get really, really warm. And where it's going to get warm concerns me, that it can really make it difficult to rain significantly or have big rain systems. You can still get convective thunderstorm types or thunderstorm clusters perhaps, but in terms of widespread beneficial rains the next couple of weeks, I just don't see it. All right, so Here's a look at week 1, week 2. And again, whenever you start to kind of position the departures and the ridging over the north like this, that is a concerning signal. Because like I said, that makes it difficult for organized storm systems to produce significant rainfall. It just makes it hard. And again, you're supposed to be getting an inch per week. That's what you're supposed to get in June, okay, on average. All right. Take a look here at the kind of this sea surface temperature precipitation, or this temperature anomaly, if you will. This is a look here at the sea surface temperature departures from normal. And the one thing that is really concerning me is this right here. We did some research on this morning, but this pool of colder water here off the southwestern U.S. here, this is what we call the negative PMM, or the Pacific Meridional mode. The correlations to a colder PMM are very dry. The precipitation pattern really lacks in terms of getting any real moisture supply or return from the subtropical jet stream, and I believe that may be playing into this, maybe playing into these drier trends. Okay, so our week 1 and week 2 precip outlooks, it doesn't get any drier here than it is right now. Of course, that's week 1. We know that. Week 2. We're 75 to 50% of the normal. Largely, for the most part, for most of the Corn Belt, we are below normal precipitation. That doesn't mean it can't rain. That's one thing I really want to stress to you, is that just because you have a below normal forecast, I know I've said this a lot this year, but perception is reality. And someone sees orange, they think, oh my gosh, it's never going to rain. It's not actually true. It still can rain. If you average an inch, you could still get a half an inch because you're 50% of the normal in week 2. Okay, so please keep that in mind. I'm not forecasting Armageddon or no rain forever. And then we look here, and I want to show you kind of my thought process to the updated and final June outlook. We looked at some tropical forcing analogs this morning. Some interesting similarities in the week 1 forecast to some of these tropical forcing analogs. Very interesting, really. In fact, you kind of see this little deal here, right? And you kind of see how it's kind of doing that right there. It's just kind of see some similarities that you look for when you're looking at analogs. These are just some analogs when we look at where our tropical forcing is really matching up the best. It tells us that this method that I'm looking at here isn't that far off because the data already sees it. So it's not crazy, but obviously it tells us that the problem spot in this analog package really is right in through here. That's really where. You may want to stretch it back out here a little bit, but that's really where the problem spot's showing up in this analog package. Okay, so for the final June outlook, again, this kind of goes back to what I kept saying a lot in April and March and April and early May, until I flipped what I was saying in late May. Full transparency, I did do that. You can go back and watch. I was concerned with the research that we had done that this precipitation could shut off very quickly this year. That was a concern of mine for several months, and the data really started to work at me here and make me doubt myself. And that's just the way that it goes. Right now, we're forecasting top 5 warmest Junes ever, and a relatively unfavorable pattern for most of the Corn Belt, especially the northwestern half of it. All right, it's just a little bit different, and things are not looking as good as they were. There's chance for a mid-month cold front, yes, no doubt about it. There's risk in here. This could be wrong. Understand that in my notes, just because you're much below normal, in our forecast, much below normal can still mean you get 2 inches of rain for the month and not 4. Understand that. It's half the normal. Okay. So that's all I have for today. Again, a change like this is certainly, something we try to avoid, but it's there. We can't avoid it. We got to watch it. It could come mid-June, and this thing could flip back. I mean, let's be honest. We have to go with what we're only as good as the data and the research that we have. I'm open to discussion. I'm open for questions. Feel free to ask them if you have any. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.